I walked to my mother's garage to throw away a napkin and found the gifts. I just gave her for Mother's Day stuffed in a trash bag like garbage. The expensive perfume, the flowers I handpicked, the letter I spent hours writing telling her how much I loved her, all crumpled next to banana peels. She hadn't even opened the envelope. That's when I realized I'd been funding my own erasure for 20 years. And what I did next destroyed their perfect little family in ways they never saw coming. My name is Sarah Martins, I'm 29 years old, and I still remember the exact weight of that trash bag in my hands. What happened that day wasn't just about revenge. It was about finally being heard after years of being invisible. And the silence that followed, that was the loudest thing I'd ever done. For 7 years, I'd been the family's secret safety net. Not the daughter, not the sister, just the one who quietly picked up the pieces when things fell apart. When the mortgage was due and David's paycheck was late again, I covered it. When Mom's car broke down, I handled the repairs. When my little brother Tyler needed his college tuition, I set up automatic payments without being asked. I told myself it was love, that families help each other. But love is supposed to go both ways, isn't it? I wasn't born into this strange half-life. When I was little, it was just Mom and me against the world. She'd tuck me in every night and whisper, "You're my whole world, sweetheart." I believed her because back then it was true. We were a team, messy but complete. Then when I was 10, David appeared. Quiet, practical, with kind eyes and steady hands. I thought I was gaining a father figure. I didn't realize I was about to start disappearing. The baby came 18 months later. Tyler. Perfect, wanted, planned. Suddenly our little apartment wasn't big enough for David's vision of a real family. They bought a house with a white picket fence and matching patio furniture. Mom started wearing makeup again, laughing at David's jokes, posting family photos where everyone looked like they belonged in a catalog. Everyone except me. I wasn't edited out exactly. I was just faded, like someone had turned down my opacity until I was barely visible. By high school, I'd learned my role perfectly. I was the built-in babysitter who didn't need paying, the emergency contact who'd drop everything, the one who remembered birthdays and doctor's appointments and school events when the real family was too busy being happy. I told myself it was temporary, that once Tyler was older, once David's job was more stable, once Mom wasn't so overwhelmed, I'd matter again. But temporary stretched into years, and years stretched into a lifetime of being grateful for scraps. College should have been my escape, but instead I became their financial insurance policy. Mom would call with that specific tone in her voice, sweet and helpless. "Honey, I know you're busy, but David's commission didn't come through and Tyler needs new cleats for soccer." I'd transfer the money before she finished asking. Not because I was rich, but because saying no felt like admitting I wasn't family at all. The pattern was perfect. I'd send money. They'd say thank you. Then 3 weeks later David would post photos from some restaurant I'd never been invited to. Tyler would get new gaming equipment while I ate ramen for dinner. Mom would buy expensive skincare products while asking me to cover the electric bill. But I kept giving because the alternative was admitting I'd been buying love from people who'd already spent it elsewhere. Last Christmas was the final warning sign, though I didn't recognize it then. I showed up with gifts for everyone, expensive ones I'd spent months saving for. Tyler barely looked up from his phone when he opened his. David nodded politely and set his aside. Mom hugged me and said, "You didn't have to do all this," in a tone that suggested she wished I hadn't. Then they exchanged their gifts with each other. Personal things. Thoughtful things. Gifts that said, "I know you, I see you, I love who you are." I sat there holding my generic daughter mug and realized I was watching their family Christmas, not participating in it. But this Mother's Day morning started with hope. Stupid, stubborn hope that maybe this year would be different. A hope that my mother will finally see me as more than an inconvenient reminder of her teenage mistakes. Maybe it was because Mom had actually thanked me when I helped with her taxes. Maybe it was because she'd sent a smiley face emoji when I asked about brunch plans, old school and familiar like when I was young. Or maybe I was just tired of feeling hollow and desperate. I wanted to try one more time, but do it right. Really right. I spent 3 hours in the perfume store, testing bottles until I found the exact one she used to wear when I was little. The one that made me feel safe when she hugged me goodnight. It wasn't cheap, but I didn't care. I drove to the fancy flower shop across town, not the grocery store, and chose white roses because they were her favorites. Then I sat at my kitchen table with good paper and a real pen, not just a text or email, and wrote her a letter. I told her I knew things hadn't been perfect, that blended families are complicated, that I understood why Tyler needed more attention when he was little. I thanked her for the sacrifices she'd made raising me alone, acknowledged the strength it took to build a new life with David. But I also told her I loved her, that I missed feeling close to her, that I hoped we could find our way back to each other. It took me 4 tries to get it right, my hand cramping from writing by hand in an age of keyboards. I sealed it in a red envelope because red was her favorite color. Mother's Day morning, I stood in front of their house holding my offerings like a nervous suitor. The landscaping was perfect, the windows sparkled. Everything looked like a magazine spread for suburban happiness. I could hear laughter through the walls, probably Tyler telling one of his college stories that made everyone crack up. For a moment, I let myself imagine walking in and actually belonging there. Not as the helpful outsider, but as someone who had a real place at that table. Mom answered the door in a flowy dress and pearls, looking radiant. "Oh, you made it," she said, and for half a second, her smile seemed genuine. I handed her the flowers first, then the perfume. She glanced at the bottle with mild recognition, like she was trying to place a song she hadn't heard in years. "Oh, this one. I haven't worn this in forever." Not warm, not grateful, just observed. But I didn't let it shake me. This was about trying, not about her reaction. Inside, David was flipping pancakes while Tyler regaled them with stories about his economics professor, who apparently looked like he'd never paid rent in his life. Everyone laughed on cue. I took my place at the table, noting that while everyone else had mimosas, there wasn't one poured for me. Tyler passed me syrup without making eye contact. David asked how work was going, then turned away before I finished answering. The conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. Halfway through brunch, Tyler grinned at me with that cocky smile he'd perfected in high school. "So do you still do the whole Mother's Day thing, or is this like your annual charity visit?" David chuckled. Mom didn't say anything, just sipped her mimosa like Tyler had commented on the weather. I kept smiling because that's what I did. I absorbed their casual cruelty and pretended it didn't sting. "Well, I didn't bring a gift card this time," I said lightly. "I actually brought something personal." I pulled the red envelope from my jacket and placed it next to Mom's plate. It looked so bright against the white tablecloth, like a drop of blood on fresh snow. Mom stared at it like I'd just served her a subpoena. Tyler snorted. "What is that, like a love letter or something?" The table went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then someone asked for more coffee and the moment passed, but the envelope stayed there, unopened and somehow ominous. After brunch, I helped clear dishes like I always did. The good daughter, the helpful one, cleaning up after the real family celebration. I was carrying plates to the kitchen when I noticed David had already taken the trash out, even though we'd barely finished eating. He liked a tidy house, I told myself. Just being efficient. I walked to the garage to throw away some napkins, and that's when I saw it. The overhead door was cracked open just enough to let in sunlight, illuminating the garbage bins lined up like soldiers against the back wall. And there, leaning against a black trash bag like discarded mail, were my flowers. Bent sideways, stems crushed, petals already browning. The perfume box was there too, still wrapped, still untouched, like something toxic that needed to be disposed of carefully. But it was the red envelope that broke something inside me. Still sealed, my hours of careful handwriting reduced to trash. Not even opened. Not even curiosity about what I'd poured my heart out to say. Just garbage to be hauled away on Tuesday morning. I stood there in that half-lit garage, staring at my love dumped like coffee grounds and banana peels. It wasn't anger I felt first. It was heat rising up my neck, settling behind my eyes. Not enough to cry, but enough to blur the edges of everything. I looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then I reached into that bag and took it all back. The flowers, the perfume, the letter. My offerings to a family that had already thrown me away. I walked to my car with the rescued gifts in my hands, sat behind the wheel with the engine off, and stared at that red envelope. Still sealed. Still full of words she'd never wanted to read. I thought about going back inside, demanding an explanation, making a scene. But what would be the point? They'd already given me their answer. It was sitting in a trash bag next to empty yogurt containers and yesterday's newspaper. I drove home in complete silence, not even music to fill the space. At my apartment, I lined everything up on my kitchen counter like evidence from a crime scene. The perfume, the flowers, the letter. They looked smaller now, sadder, like artifacts from someone I didn't recognize anymore. I stared at that red envelope, crumpled from its journey through garbage, and realized I didn't need to open it. I knew exactly what it said. I knew how desperate it sounded, how much hope I'd folded into those words. That's when the clarity hit. Not rage, not heartbreak, but that cold, surgical kind of understanding that cuts through years of self-deception. I wasn't the daughter who'd been overlooked. I was the ATM they kept around for emergencies. Not the sister who'd been pushed aside, but the checkbook that happened to have feelings. And for the first time in my adult life, I was done making deposits into accounts that would never pay me back. I opened my laptop and logged into every utility account I'd been quietly covering. Gas, water, electricity, internet. I scheduled final payments and removed my name from all of them. The confirmation emails felt like small victories, each one a weight lifted off my shoulders. Then I opened Tyler's tuition account. The payment for his spring semester was scheduled to process on the 15th. I canceled it. The system asked if I was sure. I clicked yes without hesitation. But that wasn't enough. They needed to feel it, really feel it. So I composed an email to Mom with the subject line Mother's Day. The body was just 2 sentences. Just wanted to let you know I tucked an envelope of cash inside that letter I gave you today. It was meant for Tyler's next semester. Hope it didn't get lost in all the excitement. I hit send, then closed my laptop and made tea I didn't drink. There was no cash, of course. No secret envelope, no emergency fund. But they didn't know that. And now, every time they thought about that trash bag, they'd wonder. They'd calculate. They'd panic about what they might have thrown away, literally and figuratively. By 8 the next morning, my phone was buzzing like an angry wasp. Text after text from Mom. What do you mean cash? How much was in there? I'll look right now, but everything's already gone to the dump. Then the call started. Over and over, my screen lighting up with her name. I watched it buzz and go dark, each unanswered call a small satisfaction. The voicemails piled up like digital panic attacks. I could hear the desperation creeping into her voice with each message, the careful composure cracking as she realized what might have been lost. Not just money, but the bridge between her carelessness and her son's education, between her dismissiveness and her husband's respect, between the family she'd chosen and the one she'd discarded. Around noon, David finally texted me directly. "This is serious. If you're telling the truth, we need to know how much. If you're lying, you need to stop this now." I almost replied, "Check the landfill." But silence was more powerful than sarcasm. Let them sit with the uncertainty. Let them feel what I'd been feeling for years, wondering if I mattered at all. But the real genius of my plan wasn't the fake cash story. It was what came next. I opened my contacts and found 3 names that made my stomach tighten with satisfaction. Business associates I'd personally introduced to David over the years. A contractor who'd given him steady side work, a client who'd recommended him for his current position, a vendor who'd been throwing projects his way for 2 years. I sent each of them a version of the same message. "Hi, just wanted to reach out about something personal. Moving forward, please don't associate my name with David Morrison. Nothing dramatic, just setting some boundaries. Hope that makes sense. Professional but final. Polite but unmistakable." I wasn't asking them to fire David or cancel contracts. I was just quietly stepping away from the network that had built his career. In the business world, that kind of message speaks volumes. When someone requests distance from an associate, people start asking questions. They start wondering what happened behind the scenes. They start protecting themselves. Within a week, David had lost his biggest referral source. A contract got postponed indefinitely. Another client requested to work with someone else, no explanation given. I didn't have to destroy his reputation. I just removed myself from the foundation it was built on, and the whole structure started to crumble on its own. That weekend, Mom left a voicemail that almost broke my resolve. Her voice was shaky, not crying but close. "Please call me back. Please." I didn't know what was in that envelope. I would never have thrown it away if I'd known. "You have to believe me. This is killing me. Just tell me how much and we'll figure it out, okay? We'll make it right." But she still didn't say she was sorry for dismissing my gift. She didn't acknowledge years of taking my money while treating me like a stranger. She was just panicked about what she'd lost, not sorry about how she'd lost it. So I didn't call back. I let her sit with the weight of her own choices, the way I'd been sitting with mine for years. 2 weeks later, my aunt called. Apparently, Mom had reached out to the whole extended family, painting me as vindictive and cruel, someone who'd changed and become impossible to deal with. My aunt listened to the whole sob story, then told me something that made me smile for the first time in days. "Honey, if I were you, I wouldn't answer their calls either. Some people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone." Someone finally saw it, really saw it. How much I'd given, how little I'd received, how quietly I'd accepted being treated like an inconvenience in my own family. My aunt understood what Mom never would. That walking away wasn't cruelty. It was self-preservation. By the 3rd week, the panic had shifted to anger. Mom's texts went from, "Please call me," to, "You need to stop this childish behavior right now." David sent professional emails like we were negotiating a contract instead of untangling a decade of buried resentment. He wrote that my decision to disengage was affecting his livelihood, and he hoped I'd reconsider for the sake of family stability. Translation: "Your silence is costing me money, and that's unacceptable." Then Tyler got involved, sending me a voice memo that started with, "Look, I know things were never perfect between us," and ended with, "But seriously, you're destroying Mom's life over some stupid trash." Some stupid trash. That's what my letter was to him. My flowers, my perfume, my desperate attempt to reconnect with people who'd been throwing me away piece by piece for years. Some stupid trash. But I still didn't respond. Not to defend myself, not to explain, not to justify what I'd done. Because silence was the only language they'd never learned to speak. And finally, it was saying everything I'd been trying to tell them for years. A month later, Mom showed up at my office. No warning, no appointment, just walked into the lobby like she owned the place. She was dressed for battle in a cream blazer and heels that clicked against the marble floor like gunshots. When the receptionist called me downstairs, I found her pacing by the windows, looking like someone who'd run out of patience entirely. "We need to talk," she said, already heading for the exit. Outside on the sidewalk, she didn't ask how I was doing or comment on my new haircut. She went straight for the throat. "You've humiliated this entire family," she hissed. "Tyler had to defer his semester. David lost his job last week. Do you understand what you've done?" I nodded slowly, studying her face. This was the first time in years she'd looked directly at me, really looked, and it was because I'd finally done something she couldn't ignore. "I understand exactly what I've done," I said calmly. Her eyes flashed with something dangerous. "This is about one day? One stupid misunderstanding." I tilted my head. "Is that what you're calling it? A misunderstanding? We raised you," she snapped. "We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. And this is how you repay us." I almost laughed. "Almost. You want to talk about repayment? I gave you the down payment for your house. I covered your utilities for 3 years. I was about to pay for Tyler's entire education. But sure, let's discuss the shoes you bought me in 5th grade. That landed." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I could see her doing the math, adding up all the money I'd quietly provided over the years. All the crises I'd solved, all the gaps I'd filled, all the times I'd been their safety net while they treated me like an uninvited guest. "That was your choice," she said finally. "We never asked you to do those things." The lie was so audacious it took my breath away. "You never asked. You just expected. Expected me to cover the mortgage when David's commission was late. Expected me to understand when you missed my graduation because Tyler had a soccer tournament. Expected me to smile when he called me half family, like I was some kind of consolation prize." Her composure cracked. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Maybe guilt. Maybe just discomfort at being called out so directly. "You're punishing Tyler for something he didn't do," she said, playing her last card. "He never threw anything away." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You want to know about that letter, Mom? About what was really in it?" She went very still. "I told you I loved you. I thanked you for raising me. I said I understood how hard it must have been being a single mother, then building a new family. I told you I missed feeling close to you and hoped we could find our way back to each other." The color drained from her face. "I told you that even when it hurt, even when I felt like you didn't want me around anymore, I still loved you. And you threw it away without even opening it." Her lips moved, but no sound came out. "So no, I'm not punishing Tyler. I'm finally protecting myself from people who see my love as disposable." She stood there on that sidewalk looking like I'd slapped her. Like the quiet, accommodating version of me had died right there in front of her and been replaced by someone she didn't recognize. "You can't just abandon your family," she whispered. I adjusted my purse strap and smiled sadly. "I learned from the best. That was 6 months ago. David never found another job at the same level. The professional world is smaller than people think, and when someone quietly steps away from endorsing you, others notice. Tyler had to transfer to a community college, which he complained about constantly on social media. Mom had to downsize the house, sell the fancy car, actually budget for the first time in years. I got promoted twice, moved into a beautiful apartment with tall windows and a view of the river. Started hosting dinner parties with people who actually listen when I talk, who value my opinions, who see me as more than a walking checkbook. I learned what it felt like to be wanted rather than needed, appreciated rather than used. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. If I should have tried talking to them first, setting boundaries gently, giving them a chance to change. But then I remember that garage, that trash bag, that red envelope crumpled and discarded like something toxic. I remember 20 years of being invisible while keeping them afloat. And I realize I didn't burn a bridge. I just stopped maintaining one they'd been neglecting for decades. The fake cash envelope was a lie, yes. But the pain was real. The abandonment was real. The years of being erased while funding their happiness, that was all real. And for the first time in my life, they couldn't ignore it. They couldn't dismiss it or minimize it or treat it like it didn't matter. Because silence, it turns out, is the loudest thing you can do to people who've spent years not listening. Last week, I got a text from Mom. Just one line. Saw your promotion announcement. I'm proud of you. She didn't apologize. Didn't acknowledge what happened. Didn't ask to rebuild what we'd lost. Just 5 words that felt like she was testing the water, seeing if the door was still locked. I stared at that message for a long time, remembering the little girl who used to be her whole world, who used to believe that love was unconditional, that family meant belonging, that trying hard enough could fix anything. That little girl would have responded immediately, would have taken those 5 words and built a whole reconciliation around them. But I'm not that little girl anymore. I deleted the message and made myself dinner, sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, and watched the sun set over a life I'd built entirely for myself. No guilt, no obligation, no performance required. Just peace. Some people might call what I did cruel. Maybe it was. But sometimes cruelty is just clarity delivered without cushioning. Sometimes revenge is just consequences, finally catching up with choices people thought they'd never have to pay for. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop loving people who've made it clear they don't know how to love you back. I don't miss the late-night calls asking for money. I don't miss the holidays where I felt like a stranger in my own family. I don't miss waiting for scraps of affection from people who gave their whole hearts elsewhere. What I have now isn't perfect, but it's mine. Built by me, for me, with people who chose to be here rather than people who tolerated my presence as long as I was useful. They say the best revenge is living well. But sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and letting people discover what they lost when you were no longer there to catch them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. My name is Sarah Martins. I'm 29 years old, and I finally learned that silence isn't empty. It's full of all the words people should have been listening to all along.